off. So thank you for joining us today for our Landcare Checks-In pop-up, which we do occasionally for DPIRD. We don't necessarily always get a lot of notice, but we put together an event where you can jump online and ask questions of the funding body when a new grant opportunity comes up. I'm Jack, I'm the CEO of the WA Landcare Network, and on the screen under Wallen you'll also see Vanessa Slater, our Landcare Expertise Exchange Facilitator. I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming from the beautiful lands of the Goomba people at Bunbury. I pay my respects to elders past and present and recognise any elders and welcome them to the room or other First Nations people. If you would like to put in the chat where you're joining us from in acknowledgement, please feel free to do so, because we're from all around the place at the moment, as I can see. Terrific. So we've got DPIRD and DBCA here today to tell us about their proactive grants response program to the bird flu. I will introduce Deb Slater, Sally Forbes from DPIRD also, and Alyssa Forbes, unrelated, from DPIRD. And we have Ryan Parker and Norm Press joining us from DBCA. So what we'll do is there's quite a slide presentation here. Deb's going to take us through that. I think, Deb, how do you feel that people can just raise your hand at any time, jump in with a question as we go, because it will get quite dense otherwise. All right, so let's go with the magic tech whiz wonder and start sharing the screen. And you can all let me know if you can see the opening screen of your presentation yet, Deb. Great, good. Over to you.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. There's some familiar faces and some not so familiar faces, but you're all welcome. So as you know, we have quite a big response from the West Australian government with bird flu. At the moment, we have some confirmed cases, but not too many. And we can talk a little bit more about around what that heat map looks like into the future. But this is the West Australian government's efforts to get on the front foot and actually start to build some resilience into our community that deals with it, but also our wildlife. Next slide, please, Jax.
Yeah.
Again, acknowledgement. Jax has already done a beautiful one. So next slide, please. So what is bird flu? And I want you to all admire all of the photos that have been put up. I have a very, very, very clever friend who takes amazing photos, and she has been kind enough to share some of those with us. So feel free to have great admiration. Okay, so I think I'm going to skim over this bit because pretty much if you're here, you have a pretty good idea of what bird flu is and what it's about, but it's a great photo. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so what are the bird flu, what we're calling the bird flu wildlife resilience grants, the WRGs. So they've been developed in recognition of the fact that, you know, community are often those first responders, and recognising the importance of the work that they do. But they're also a really important component. They're a really important cog in that, in our whole of state response. So these grants are led by DPIRD at the moment in very close partnership with our DBCA colleagues. And they aim to support communities to participate in a whole range of activities, including surveillance reporting, actually caring for sick and injured wildlife, and contributing to broader wildlife management efforts. Thanks, Jax. So I'm going to kind of fly through these a little bit. As Jax has said, if there's any questions at any point, put your hand up. It might be that we haven't got to that bit yet, or we might park it, or it might be appropriate for us to talk about it right then and there. So don't be afraid to put your hand up and ask questions. But what I want to do is leave lots of time at the end for you guys to ask any questions if you haven't already done so. So to be eligible, you need to use the Smarty Grants, which some of you will already be familiar with. It's not optional. There's no negotiation. We have to use it as a department, and it's pretty much being used across the whole of government. So that is something. And once you've started using it, it's a fabulous system. Sorry, Jax, go back a bit. I missed my second point. And obviously the eligibility criteria and the assessment criteria, which we'll get into. There's guidelines for both options, which I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we will talk about those in just a minute. Thanks, Jax. So there are two different types of grants that we're offering. The small grants are obviously small, up to $10,000, and they're only available to licensed wildlife rehabilitators to support a whole range of things. Hold that thought for any questions, because I'll come back to that in a minute. We'll drill down into that a little bit. The large grants are up to $200,000 and available to a range of organisations. And this might be some of the sticking points for you guys, with a demonstrated track record of wildlife management to support. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a registered wildlife carer for these grants, but we can talk about specifics a little bit further into this presentation. And obviously designed to be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more big picture, and to really focus on enhancing the resilience of native species. Thanks, Jax. Excuse me. Okay, assessment process. There are obviously the two different round types have two very different mechanisms for assessment. Small grants, we will do those internally. Between my DBCA colleagues here and ourselves, we will check those against eligibility. Very, very simple application form, very simple process, and we should be able to get that money out the door fairly quickly. The large grants, obviously, with a larger amount comes more stuff that you have to do. So we will be developing an assessment panel, which will be drawn from DBCA and DPIRD. We will be obviously leaning into quite a bit of technical advice, again, from both of those departments. And then that panel will be providing a short list of recommended applications for the two ministers to approve. Okay, a collective ooh for the photo, please. Isn't that cute? All right, assessment criteria. We've got only three assessment criteria here. Excuse me. 40% is on that, how well you're hitting that, the ability to tick off those eligible activities, and how much those are actually going to contribute to the long-term outcomes for wildlife. 30% is the capacity of that applicant, so your demonstrated experience in wildlife and project management. Okay, so both of those are really important. And then 30%, obviously, value for money. Okay, now I'm going to drill into first the small grants. Now, they are currently open. I'm getting ahead of myself. They're between $1,500 and $10,000, and it's a 3-tiered arrangement, around 6 months, and it's a very, very simple application process. You'll be happy to hear. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so the small grants, they're now open, and they will remain open until the 10th of December. They're allocated on a first-come basis until the funds are gone. So my recommendation would be, if you are eligible and interested in these grants, get into it right away. So the 3 tiers are up to $1,500 for individuals, right? You still must be a registered carer. I'm using the incorrect terms, and I can see both Norm and Ryan twitching over there going, use the correct term, Dad. But basically, you have to be licensed with DBCA. For organisations with 2 to 10 people, you can apply for up to $5,000. And for organisations over 11, you can apply for 10. Now, that's our job between us and DBCA to actually arrange to check against the eligibility there and to determine whether you are licensed and check your ABN against those records. Sal's written something there. Yes, thanks, Sal. Sal's actually said that from the time you are contracted, so from the time you've got your money in and we write up a very simple contract, you will have 6 months to complete your application then. Alrighty.
Sorry, can I jump in and say you said to complete the application? I think you meant to complete the project.
Yep.
And also, what was the criteria to qualify the number of people in an organisation is one of the questions, because
okay, great. So there's a number of ways we can determine that. Often people will put that in their application forms, which is a great thing to do. Alternatively, sometimes there is a list of people on the DBCA licence. Otherwise, if neither of those two things are in there, we can actually call and determine how many people are there as volunteers. So we can do a workaround there and actually call the applicant and find out if they've got evidence to support their claim. Yep. Is that answer that, Jax? Oh, sorry. Yep. Go back.
No, I think that's answered the question in the chat. Thank you, because I think some people have a lot more than 2 people, but they only have 2 FTE.
Yeah, no, it's volunteers are included. So, and evidence might look like, meeting minutes or, an event role, or, we've got a range of things that we can look at to determine whether that's eligible or not.
Terrific.
Okay, so we're checking that all the proposed activities are actually valid, and you can submit 1 per organisation or applicant. Okay, next please. Okay, I'm not going to go through each of these. These are all spelled out in the guidelines, and in fact, those have been taken specifically just from the guidelines. So rather than boring you to tears, you will be able to actually easily see what is in. There's not a lot that isn't. For the small grants, obviously, we're not paying wages. We're not going to pay for coordination and things like that. It's to actually do things. And I just want you to hold that thought for a minute, because we can talk about how the smalls are different to the larges. The other thing I just wanted to point out is if you look down on the second last point, it says materials to support temporary fencing. So for these grants, you can only apply for temporary fencing. And that's just a point of difference between these and the large grants. Okay, large grants. They have a separate set of guidelines because obviously these 2 grant rounds are quite different. So please make sure you get 1 or both, depending what you're looking at applying for. Up to $200,000. So all we need from these organisations is to have a demonstrated track record in wildlife management. That could mean many things, but we need to see that it's relevant to the activities that you're applying for. Thanks, Jax. I love that photo. So these large grants are also open now. And I just also want to acknowledge the incredible work done by my team, Sally's team, and our DBCA colleagues to get these things up and running in what feels like two minutes, but it was actually 2 weeks. So it's been a bit of an effort. They close at noon on Tuesday, the 27th of September.
29th.
Go, Jax.
29th.
Yeah,
sorry,
what did I say?
27th.
Yeah, that. And obviously these are a little bit more strategic. Next slide, please.
Yep. Can I just ask a question, Deb, from the chat? In the small grants, what about roofing over penning to prevent wild birds interacting with wildlife in care?
If it's temporary, so you're talking about in the smalls, we're going back to the smalls?
Yes.
Yeah. So if it's temporary, temporary structures, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Also pulled off the guidelines, so I'm not going to drag your good selves through this. But there are, obviously more is required for these larger grants. The things you will need to supply with your application are quotes. Maps are always great. Everyone loves a map. It just tells 1,000 words. Any documents that you've referred to at the body of your application. And in particular, if your application involves third parties, then we will need evidence of that. And that sort of thing involves letters of commitment, land access permissions, and any quotes from third parties such as contractors, consultants, speakers, etc. So that should all be relatively clear in the application form as well. Okay, again, dragged out of kicking and screaming out of the guidelines, and I'm referring you back to them multiple times because they are going to be your best friend. They'll have all the information that you need in there, hopefully, and any gaps that there are, feel free to reach out to our team and we can sort that out. We can answer those questions. The big difference between the eligible activities of the large grants are, if you look at probably the bottom 4, and I'm just getting my own copy up. Oh, there we go. I can see it better now. So you can see wages for staff to deliver the approved activities. There's also an admin and operational expenses. Wildlife habitat restoration protection. And permanent structures such as aviaries, overhead structures. Okay, so there is a difference in the types of activities that we can fund with these large grants, but otherwise they're relatively the same as the smalls. Okay, next slide, please. All right, now this is I was just showing the rest of the team this earlier. That website has everything you could ever want to know about bird flu. I've just done screenshots over those and popped those there so you can see, but there's every bit of information that you could possibly think of, including a really comprehensive frequently asked questions as well. So I highly recommend, if you want to know anything more about bird flu, they also have a hotspot map there. So as people are reporting, that's actually going up on that map. So yeah, go and familiarize. Yeah, Sal's just said it would definitely be worthwhile having a poke around and a play through that. That site's really, really good. And next slide, please. Okay, a collective wow for that awesome photo as well. So if you have any other questions as well, please reach out to us on any of those numbers. And that's my very quick, dirty presentation on the grants, but I wanted to leave a bit of time for you guys to ask specific questions as they come up. That's a bronze wing, by the way. Isn't it pretty?
Beautiful.
Mm.
So Does anyone want to go back to a particular slide to ask a question, or are people happy for me to stop sharing the screen? Happy to stop share? Cool.
No, they just want to look at my beautiful photos.
There we go. Back in the room. Thanks, Deb. Yeah, just to clarify for some people in the room and for the recording too, as Deb did say, this has all come together very, very quickly. You will all receive a link to the recording, which you can share and people can watch on YouTube. And we always get a lot of follow-up of people viewing those afterwards. So questions from the floor. I've got, Matt, straight in there. Matt, ready, set, go.
Why not, eh? Thanks for the opportunity, albeit I had to juggle work commitments around to be here. It's great to get the money, to be honest, so I'm not going to whinge too much about less than 2 hours notice to talk about this stuff. But we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now. We know that bird flu has been seen in the pelagic vagrant communities, and we know the devastating impacts it's having through South Australia and Victoria right now. The challenge is, whilst we wait and cross our fingers for as much time to prepare as possible, it means it's quite hard to kind of get some of these kind of grant applications off the ground in terms of what we need. So, I mean, what I'd like to see for Seabird Rescue, I should introduce myself, sorry, President of Seabird Rescue. I'd love to see a kind of mobile ambulance that's employed by one of our volunteers that steps up onto a kind of hourly wage. But really, we don't need that until we see kind of domestic spread through the populations. So can we apply in anticipation and then just hold the money until we really see bird flu go to scale across our domestic populations? Because that's really when we're needing to kind of release that funding and kind of put our kind of plans into action.
An excellent question. And I'm not sure I can answer that immediately.
Yeah.
I know the government wants to be responsive, and that was the purpose of these grants. So my initial thoughts were, if you can get that mobile ambulance up and running, but I don't know that it would be a successful application if you were planning to just have a plan if it happens, and to hang on to that money, if I've understood your question properly.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all waiting to see what's happened. We haven't had a case in 8+ weeks, and we hope that continues. But the reality is, at some point, we're going to see it back here. So we're all waiting to some degree. We are virtual by our organization structure, so we don't have physical premises. But assets like transport or potentially boats to get to these remote communities are things that we're thinking about with these large grants. Yep. We've already applied for the small grants to do more training and better prepare with PPE. So that's great to have that already being assessed. But these large grants are really dependent on what kind of scale of spread we're going to see in the months that follow. So it's going to be very interesting to see if we apply and then just wait until we kind of roll out that plan when we do see domestic spread. But yeah, I appreciate it's a very difficult question to answer because who knows what's going to happen.
And I understand what you're saying. I understand that it's a
waiting game. Yeah.
we really don't know what we don't know at this point. However, what I think is important is that these grants, their purpose is to start getting really prepared. So that is potentially an eligible activity. Yeah. I guess what the government wouldn't want to see is for that money just to sit there with no purpose, or not with a purpose, but with not being used immediately. I think Sal's got some more to add to that one.
Yes, Matt, if what you're wanting is an ambulance, but you don't know where it is going to be deployed yet, then that's what I would put an application in for, because $200,000 is going to get you an awful lot, a long way there. And there's a point where a certain amount of construction is probably going to have to be done in a relatively urban type area anyway to have access to some of the bits that you would need to have put in it. So for that, because we can sort of have a relatively educated guess about where that could be deployed, that would actually be a wonderful application. To have the money sit there and wait for when you might need it wouldn't work, because you only have 12 months to be able to acquit the grant.
Yeah, look, thanks, Sally. Certainly the purchasing of an ambulance and the fit out is is a good use of money. We are all volunteers at Seabird Rescue, but I think it would be an unfair expectation for a volunteer to be driving this ambulance up and down the coast. So I would like to see a potential transition into contractual arrangement with a volunteer who can do this work. So that's more the point is, yeah, we can buy the ambulances, and I think they'll be good for both the bird flu response and wider work post kind of normality of bird flu in the kind of domestic populations. But yeah, I'll read the application, and I think I'll get talking to our committee to make sure that's the direction we want to go. And yes, Vanessa, we probably need several dozen of these ambulances, depending on where we have these centralized hubs for the kind of treatment or euthanasia of these animals. But yeah, I appreciate your feedback there, Sally. Thank you.
Thanks.
Offline, Matt, I'm also more than happy to talk you through some of the process if you want to go through that in more detail.
Yeah, thank you, Sally.
As for anybody, any applicant that wants to go through things, we're always happy to have a chat and go through the finer details.
Terrific. Sally, for the benefit of the people who are watching the recording, there's a comment here that you're hoping for announcement prior to Christmas, which is 4 or 5 months away still. So people applying and planning, and we've got a post in the chat about seal pups being tested currently in Esperance. You know, South Australia, the borders aren't recognised by wildlife. Do you think there's any opportunity that there could be a quicker turnaround time in the grants, in the approvals, if the situation really amplifies? Because it'll be terrible to know the sort of the funding's there, the applications are in, but people are unable to respond. It's going to create a sense of urgency, isn't it?
It will. Unfortunately, that's going to be part of the process that is a part of the process. To be able to have an application period to give applicants 6 weeks to actually get stuff together, it's a ridiculously short amount of time to actually collect all the things that you need to get together before you can actually then submit. So then it can actually go to an assessment panel, recommendation reports can be written, sent up to ministers, so then they can give the final approval on things. Unfortunately, there's not an awful lot of a shortcut to there. The trade-off is to give you enough time to get in a decent application means that it's going to take longer to be able to have that announcement. So unfortunately, that's part of the process that we are stuck with, but the trade-offs for that are, I think, also understandable.
But I also think that there's two things. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you see the application. It's been pared back significantly, but also the government does have a really strong sense of urgency and push. Well, that's why we got these out in 2 weeks. You know, they really are wanting a very quick response. So, you know, it's got good eyes on it, and I think, yeah, I think we should be reassured by that.
Terrific.
We may have an announcement sooner than that as well. Just there are more people in the process apart from us, and I also don't want to overcommit anybody where it's not my role to talk about their commitments. So I'm hoping that Christmas is safe.
Thank you, Sal. Matt, is that a new hand?
Yeah, kind of following on from all of this. The small grants are first in best dressed, it sounds like. Get them in quick, get them in before the money runs out. Whereas a large grant seem to be more means tested and with a slightly lengthier, albeit still quite rushed timeframe. And I appreciate, we're the reasons why. So there's no incentive to get our applications in early. From what I'm hearing, we can really think about every dollar that we want, which is, I'll get some nods, which is great. But we just run it's 2 slightly different grant structures. One is first in best dress, the other one is means tested up to 200,000, and it's not a case of like getting your elbows out to kind of get access to the grant. It's okay, cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
put in the best application
made to hit the ground running. So everybody who is a wildlife carer, as we're starting to see those things emerge, wildlife carers do have the means to be able to go out and care and do all of that wonderful reporting and everything that goes with it. That's actually really critical and is going to be really important, I think, going forward. And yes, the larger grants are meant by their nature. So you do actually have time to collect your thoughts and go, okay, what is it that we're going to need? Because this is a one-off opportunity where, you know, you're able to make some fairly strategic decisions and apply for those, and they will be assessed against each other.
Thank you. That's great.
Terrific. So there's a couple of questions here, and welcome to those who've joined us. Tegan from BirdLife, would you like to ask your question? Because there was two answers here. You're looking at small grants or large grants.
Yes, sorry, I was actually coordinating an event, but I really wanted to get here, so I thought even if I arrive late, that's okay. I just joined when I heard something about being notified by Christmas. I was interested in the large grants.
Yeah. So we are hoping to have notifications prior to Christmas.
Okay, so project planning start for the start of 2027.
Yes, that would be an excellent plan.
Okay, amazing.
Tegan, we are under committing on that as well. It could be sooner, but we just don't want to promise that and have you guys come and lynch us.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Another question, you might have answered it, Sally, but it's, you know, people are really looking for clarity here around how competitive the grants are. It's just like a standard process that we might be accustomed to with, say, State NRM. It's like the best design and the best budgeting, the best work plan. Those are the things that get the applications across the line.
Yep. So everything will be assessed against the 3 criteria that Deb had up earlier on the slides. So the better that you can evidence and show us that you can perform against those 3 is going to make your score higher. So if you've got a third party and you need to give us a letter of commitment, please do so. If you are asking for something over $5,000 and we require a quote, please put it in, because those they're easy things to do, but it's the first hurdle, which is very easy to fall over. So if you can put yourselves into the best position possible, what I want for all of you is that you make a very, very hard job for the assessment panel to be able to pick between the projects, because they're all well constructed and necessary.
That's great.
So going back, it's a little bit hard to know how competitive they are, because we're really not sure how many applications we're going to get yet. So, you know, it's also how long is a piece of string. So, but yeah, do your best to be competitive, I guess, is the short answer.
Fabulous.
And again, we're happy to walk through with anybody to go through everything that we can, so we can help you to be in the best position possible. And
are the small grants focused on helping wildlife affected by H5N1?
Yes.
Yeah, both are. I think the smalls are very much targeted at being super responsive, and also helping organisations get their ducks aligned, excuse the pun, to be able to, you know, be in the best position, you know, in terms of PPE, you know, structures that are going to help to protect, you know, to quarantine, all those sorts of things, as the list of eligible activities. So yes, but both are.
Yeah, okay, both are. I'll come to you, Matt, but there was just a question from Kelly about the large grants being used for feral cat control projects. I guess in the sense of maintaining that wildlife resilience is removing other threats as part of a project application.
Yeah, I can take that one if you like, Deb. I'll kind of address that one and the one from Luke there as well. So yes, there is provisions for grant money to be used on habitat protection, which is going to include things like revegetation to improve the habitat, or to be able to control feral animals from that habitat. But your applications are going to have to make it incredibly clear that it is for the purpose of habitat protection and rehabilitation. So for $200,000 and with a 12-month time frame, things are still going to have to be done inside of that time frame. And unfortunately, that's one of the limits and trade-offs that that have been collectively decided for these grants. So if you need things that fall outside of that, we can we should be having another round of the community stewardship grants next year. It's a completely different round to this one, and you can give more focus there. So yes, if you are focusing on a certain community of animals that are susceptible to bird flu, you will need to demonstrate how protection of feral cats. You'll have to show how control of feral cats is going to help in the control or protection for that community. They are not grants for feral cat control in and of themselves. Did I hopefully covered that off?
Kelly, you happy with that answer? Great, thanks. We'll go to you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks. I obviously like to put on my hands, and it's a great opportunity again. I was talking to another license holder about collaborating in this space and putting in a joint application. I probably know the answer to this already, but does that amplify the potential access to funding? I suspect not. But also,
we love collaboration.
Yeah. Are you going to double my money?
No. You've already answered that.
Yeah, I knew.
The
I knew
upper limit is 200.
Yeah.
You know, so you collaborate, you share the money, or you
Yeah.
both put in which, you know, it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, which is highly regarded to put in a collaborative effort. Or you could both put in your separate ones and take the chance that one or both of you might not be successful as well.
Yeah, that's a risk.
Yeah.
I mean, I for Seabird Rescue, I'd love to see us fund these ambulances, which are probably our priority, but I'd also like to see that collaborative project take hold as well. And the guess is, like, which horse do we back in that instance? Because we're only going to be eligible for one large grant per organization. Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So it kind of feels like I have to get bang for our buck, and that's going to be a challenging thing. Can I then put within one large grant application smaller activities as a subset? So we have those ambulances, and within that we have employment, within that we have the fit out, within that we have PPE, although PPE is covered in the small grants, I know. But could we structure our kind of submission that has kind of sub activities within it? Would that work, or is it kind of the intent that larger project with one objective?
No, all your sub activities sound great.
Yeah. Okay.
As long as they're kind of all leading towards a theme, if you like.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you.
Terrific. Divya, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, no worries. So I work for Wheatbelt NRM, and I am the project manager for an Aboriginal NRM team. I'm just looking at the section that covers off on training, and I'm just wondering, what kind of training is this referring to? Is it more for wildlife health organisations, or can we use it to upskill rangers in like bird identification and things like that?
You absolutely can, you know, develop the training for the Aboriginal group. I think, again, as Sally's already talked about, is actually making it very specific to these grants. So general training is probably going to be less competitive, but if it's very specific to these grants and to managing bird flu and the impact of, then yeah, absolutely, you could use that for training your Aboriginal Ranger team. I like your Taylor Swift pictures on the wall, by the way.
That's why I turned my camera off.
Don't worry, I've got Def Leppard on mine, so you know we all have our tastes. Not really, guys. That was a joke. Sorry. Moving on along. We have a question from Murdoch about Murdoch from one of our audience. Is Murdoch University still offering their training program? Can we have a little bit discussion about that, LA?
Hi, Murdoch ran courses for the past year, and they've been employed by NRM in Queensland to run the course. They started about 18 months ago. They were basic courses about H5N1, about how to use PPE properly, how to respond in a mass event and be part of a team if that happens. And their training program is very comprehensive, and I thought it was excellent. Just wondering if they're continuing. I'm not sure if DPIRD was funding them to do that training or what the arrangement was behind it, but the course is fantastic.
We're going to take that one on notice.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out about that because I'll be honest, we've been trying to punch out these grants quickly. So there's a few other things that have been happening in the peripherals that we're not necessarily all over, but that sounds awesome. And Ella, if you've got a link to that at all, if you could share it with Jack so she can share it with us, would be amazing.
I've just quickly gone on and Googled that, and it's the last thing. It's they had a training last year in 2025, but I can't see anything more regular. But yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah. Well, if we can find out a bit more about that.
The point is that, you know, this is coming to us after it's happened elsewhere. So there's going to be practice and materials out there that we can certainly potentially use without having to reinvent the wheel or, you know, or create some relevance to the place that we're talking about, but for sure. Matt,
sorry, can I just check, was that done through the vet school?
We're not
Yeah,
sure.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've attended a few of those with Murdoch University. They've been good.
Cool.
Okay, Matt, you have a question?
Yeah. This is, I think you'll take this on notice perhaps, but a lot of where we might look to invest with a large grant depends on our role within the strategy. The strategy hasn't been released publicly, so we are in the dark. I mean, we could apply for these ambulances, keep using that as an example, and find ourselves not being required to be a part of the response. I suspect that's unlikely. But we as Seabird Rescue, we don't know what our role is because we haven't seen the strategy, which has not been made public. It would be very helpful if we knew what kind of these wildlife expectations are by seeing that strategy and that plan. And I'd hope we could do that prior to the applications. But could anyone potentially respond to that?
That one will have to be one on notice because I will need to chase up to see what timeframes are for that, and then I can disseminate as soon as we actually know something.
Thank you.
Terrific, Sally. Thank you. I don't want to put you on the spot, Tegan, but I'm just wondering, as part of your national organisation, if you have access to things that are being implemented around the country that could be relevant in Western Australia.
Well, I don't have all that much advice because every state is responding differently. So here in WA, DPIRD are the official responding agency, and that's different to what's going on in South Australia and Victoria. So everyone's sort of approaching things differently. As far as my role goes, I've just been repeating that avoid, record and report as much as I can, and really sort of advocating for what these grants are all about, building the resilience in the wildlife that we do have, so that they come out of this with a better outcome. Sorry, I don't think I do have all that much. I have found like the federal government and state government web pages with the most up-to-date information on cases and things, which I find useful, rather than there's a lot of information out there that's creating panic, and it's sometimes just nice to have the facts. I can share those if that's handy. I can put them in the chat, but yeah, as far as other resources, I don't have too much to share at the moment, but you can stay in touch, and as things come up, I'm happy to share.
Terrific, Tegan. We'll certainly do that from the network and share those things appropriately.
Amazing.
Any more questions from around the room?
I've just got one more, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I've just been online and seen that BirdLife Australia has published a list of birds most at risk of H5. Is there any prioritization with the grant assessments if you have like the really high risk species in your area?
That would be if it were me writing the application, I would be absolutely focusing on that and using that as evidence of why your particular grant is really important. And there's spots where you can provide that additional information and where you sourced it from. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Great.
I've just noticed one question from, and I'm trying to find it, asking about, is there going to be more money? And I think that was Vanessa.
Yes, good point.
I honestly don't know. Yep, that's a great question, Vanessa. As things evolve, I guess it will depend on how things evolve. So it's a bit of a horses for courses question.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. We're doing an initial response now, not really sort of knowing what, how, or why, because we're so early. So, and I suppose it's the wait and see how things do develop. And then I guess the assumption would be that as things do develop, there should be another bucket of money to
I honestly
do what you need to.
I absolutely cannot speak to that.
I know you can't, yeah, but I'm just saying that
well
that would be
outside of my ability to speak to. Yeah,
that's understandable, Deb, and I guess
absolutely
it's a moving space that we're in. It's changing on a daily basis around the country, isn't it, in lots of ways. So the more connected we are, the more information and resources we share. These grants are a great opportunity for community to get informed and get equipped and stay up to date with what's the best way to go forward. Luke.
Hi everyone. Yeah, have you got me? Yeah.
And you tilt your screen down a little
bit.
bit.
Eyebrows.
That's probably good for everyone if it's just the top of my head. No, I just wanted to clarify around the starting point. Just if we were looking at revegetation work, the December sort of time frame makes it quite difficult to order plants in a thorough and considered way, and not just buying what the nurseries might have on offer. So I'm just hoping for clarity about whether the start time for a successful project could be pushed back beyond into 2027 further, so that we could roll into a 2028 planting season, or consider that, because that's going to get better outcomes on the ground. So just curious.
Yep. So unfortunately, Luke, that's probably one of the trade-offs that we had with making it a 12-month turnaround. If we were to make you one of the last contracts, that might give you a little bit more, but we're probably talking weeks, not months there. So we've not got a lot to play with. Reveg for small specific areas of specific habitat protection for specific communities, I think you'll be able to sort of do in that time frame. But for probably what you're used to traditionally doing, that is going to be trickier and maybe suited to a different funding round if you're needing for it to either hit a certain year or to go over to multiple years.
Yeah, it's really just being able to secure a thorough and diverse plant list,
Yep.
for resilience building is harder to do
It's trickier,
ma-
I know, because you
yeah,
need to source
it's really
the seeds
tricky.
when they're
Yeah,
actually available, and then they need time to grow.
yeah.
So, yep,
Okay, we might
unfortunately,
look at a
that's
different.
one of our trade-offs.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Sally. Cheers.
Fabulous.
Can I,
Right.
sorry, can I just
Oh.
jump in? I don't normally use Zoom, so I couldn't find out where to put my hand up. Just following on from that, I was thinking a similar thing, just with the beach nesting birds breeding season, and we want to throw in some cat and fox control, and it would probably work as a start time of maybe April or May, and then run for the 12 months. Is that something it sort of has to go from January to December? Is that what you're saying?
It will be 12 months from the signed contract.
Yep. Okay. Which
So you'll
will
get
be at the end of
one
December.
season of effort, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Tegan. Matt?
I was just raising my hand to show off to Tegan that I know where the button is. But more the point, it's really good to hear about these really blue skies ideas that we're kind of creating. Seabird Rescue are very much front line to a lot of this response, and I know BirdLife in particular have been very vocal about getting the federal government to do a $200 million investment for our kind of future-proofing resilience in wildlife communities or wildlife populations. Without, how would I say it? I don't want to say I'd be pissed if there was money spent on revegetation whilst an ambulance went amiss. But I do feel like there's kind of an immediate need for kind of investment, and then that longer term strategic need. And I just wonder if some of these thoughts are better kind of channeled into other grant programs and taking money away from first responders. It sounds really mean to say that, but I mean, for us to do bird flu response would probably very much depend on having access to transport. And I think we probably need to have a kind of more collective conversation about where we apply for various grants and how we do this in a way which is strategic for that short-term response and that long-term response. The 10 grand stuff is very, very short-term, but this $200,000 could go very quickly, especially if we're doing wider kind of eradication programs or revegetation programs. But yeah, just a reflection, really.
I guess that's why it's really important to be very specific about the types of communities that you're trying to protect.
Yeah.
If we've got a critically endangered species where they need a certain subset of stuff, that obviously has to be balanced against other situations.
Yeah.
But it is still well within the guidelines to be able to do any of those activities, and that's why it's so important to put in a good application that's well supported of all of your evidence, because it is quite a broad subset of activities that people can apply for. So we need to be able to read that application and go, okay, we can see the need and urgency and the purpose of what this is doing. So that way it is the most competitive application that it can be. So if you can give us specifics of a location or a need, so you can be, in your case for your ambulances, your responsiveness and mobility is, one of the strong points. So
yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead.
I think, Matt, as well, something else to consider, it's sort of going on a slight tangent, but there are other funding sources out there that depend very heavily on co-investment. So, that would be a conversation we could take offline to give you what those opportunities might look like. Lottery West love co-investing with other funding sources. So, it could be that you can build something bigger. And I know I've gone a bit off on a tangent here, but I'm kind of thinking of all the things you want to do. You don't have to put it all in this one bucket. You can go through multiple buckets. But yeah, you also need to trust that there is going to be an incredible brains trust in the assessment panel, and they will be looking at what are the most urgent things.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, very good points. We have applied in the past and been successful with lottery grants. Through Volunteer in WA, we also have access to their kind of newsletters talking about grant opportunities.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you. Whilst I'm off mute, again, on alternate grant opportunities, we've had animal welfare grants in the past. Do these bird flu response grants kind of take priority, or will we see an animal welfare grant happen as we usually do on a kind of cyclical basis?
I can't speak for the animal welfare grants. We're not part of that. While we are all still one DPIRD, we are all looking at different aspects. So they'll, if there's another round, they'll have their own budget for that. So I can either get in contact with them and then you, or you can contact them directly, either way.
Great. And there's clearly an opportunity for us in the network to look at a series of Landcare checks in, of getting together with people as their applications unfold and look at how that kind of could map into community stewardship applications for next year, so that people are looking at their sort of a system of connection to look at these initial grants, and then how are they supported and continued potentially through a big collaborative project out of the community stewardship grants for the next round.
Yep. You've got a question there about the vaccine and if it's available. It would be one of the activities that would certainly be considered, and as with any activity, you will need to evidence why that is the activity that you need for your particular circumstance and give whatever quotes, but also whatever permits that you may need to be able to handle something like that too, which would also go for any animal welfare permits that you may need, or anything for feral animal control. You'll need to make sure that all of that is documented, or that there is some sort of evidence that you're on the path to acquiring those things.
Fabulous. Okay, well, I'm very conscious of time and everyone's busy schedules. If there's no further questions or any closing comments, perhaps from the gentleman at DBCA or DPIRD, over to you, Deb.
Oh, I was going to ask if Ryan or Norm had anything to add to this very interesting conversation.
Not so much. It's been interesting to be the proverbial fly on the wall. Lots of conversations that have been had in this meeting that have been had elsewhere as well. So good to see that the vibe is consistent. The question on vaccines has been very topical in recent times, with Victoria vaccinating their little penguin population at Phillip Island. I'd imagine that there's a great deal of approvals and regulatory hurdles to get over for something like that to apply in Western Australia, unless the state government was doing it. I understand there's approvals needed from APVMA and DPIRD's Chief Veterinary Officer. So I'd suggest that perhaps if people are considering making applications for the large grant round to do with vaccines, they reach out to DPIRD's H5 team to just see what the status is on vaccines being applied in wild animals. From what I know, the birds need 2 doses, and giving wild animals 2 doses 7 or 8 weeks apart is basically impossible.
Great, thank you. Again, any final closes from DPIRD? No, well, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming along and hearing about the wonderful grants.
Yes, terrific. And really at such short notice, thank you guys for putting it together and getting some money available. It helps people to, deal with some of their stress around this, is that there is a response taking place that they can be part of. So that's fabulous. We're going to make a note on the YouTube, and when we promote this, that we had a lovely range of questions. So thank you everyone for your contribution, because that's given a really good bit of fleshing out to a few pertinent questions, so that people can pick those up and follow on. And if at any time you have any further questions, you reach out to us, reach out directly to DPIRD or DBCA, and we look forward to hearing from you.